think the difference was between the two halves?
I've thought about this over and over for a long time now. It's I just want to say it was the energy and lack of focus is what it came down to. I thought we had lack of focus throughout the first half. I think we had 4 drops in the first quarter, which is kind of uncharacteristic of the receivers. But when we got into the second half, I thought the effort, the energy, I think they didn't want to play in that second half. And don't know exactly what the cause is. It could be a lot of other things. But when it comes down to it, we've got to be able to play with effort and energy. That's something that we can control. And that's going to be the focus going to practice at the end of the game and post-game media. That's all I talked about was how we're going to get it corrected in practice. And today is going to be strictly an emphasis on terms of practicing with effort. And I think that's been addressed. I don't know what Coach Holgerson said in his press conference, but I bet you he reiterated the same stuff. So you guys see it as well. That's something that we take a lot of pride in, and it's probably not going to happen again.
How pleasing is it that Marcus Sims is having the season that he's having so far, and what does that mean to the other guys?
Yeah, I think he's playing at a very high level. Obviously he's putting up great numbers, but from where he was at last year to where he's at this year, he's turning into an every down guy for us. And we put a lot on his shoulders, not just from an offensive perspective, but special teams as well. But when you have that threat and how he was making some big time catches on critical downs in the game too. So Will's, like the way my brother put it to me after the game is that Will has so much confidence in 8 right now in Marcus that your hit charts, the ball is being sprayed all over the field, and it's very tough to defend that when you've got 3 guys playing at a high level and the ball is getting spread around pretty evenly.
With the running game, do you go into the game saying we're going to establish a run today, or do you go into the game going we're going to do whatever they give us?
I think you always have to establish a run. And that's, the emphasis of the night before was about playing with the physicality and understanding that they're going to be taking away the run. That's how Texas Tech plays defense. And I thought the first half we matched that pretty well. I thought we were running the ball pretty efficiently in the first half. And I believe that if you want to have a lot of success in this game and as a team, you've got to be able to run the ball efficiently. And if you just look at how we ran the ball in the first half to the second half, you can see that it was 2 different teams and it was 2 different outcomes. So it is very important to make sure that we establish a run game.
Jake, knowing who you have in the passing game, and it's a good idea, both Will and your receivers. I guess, how do you fairly evaluate your running game? I was looking, net yards probably doesn't mean a whole lot. Your average is good. You're not moving backward very much, but you don't have a ton of explosive plays either.
Right.
I'm just curious, where you stand.
Yeah, that was something I thought when I reevaluated how I did at the end of the game. I thought I should have thrown a little more in that second half. There was a lot of factors into the second half and how we were playing. There's a lot of momentum changes in that game, and you could see that we didn't have any momentum in that second half, and it was tough to get out of that. And I should have ended up throwing the ball a little bit more on first and second down, because it ended up being a tendency at times where we were running the ball on first and second down and throwing on third, which a lot was kind of trying to run some clock a little bit, trying to be more efficient with the time management. But at the end of the day, we should have probably had more efficient pass plays, get the ball in play, because those kids are pretty explosive. And when your run game's not hitting the explosive plays like you want it, you need to probably end up throwing it a little bit more.
Overall, though, this part of the season, again, not a ton of opportunities because your passing game is that good, but are you okay with it? Should it be more of one thing or more of another?
I think it's going to be a feel throughout the game. It really is. That it is tough. I think you got a lot of good players out there and try to distribute the ball, evenly. But, I think that's just going to change weekly based off of how we're playing.
Will has not gotten a whole lot of pressure through the first 3.5 games, but obviously second half a lot. Is that a concern for you that he faced as much pass rush as he did?
No, it's not. I think that comes down to an effort situation in which we're going to get that fixed. I thought the first half everything was clicking. You score 35 points, 28 in one quarter. things are looking pretty good. That's a pretty solid first half. Second half came out, nothing changed between the game plans. It's just I felt like Texas Tech wanted it more.
So the ones there, they were ID'd correctly, they just beat your guys and got the win?
A couple of them. A couple of them were, there's probably about 1 or 2 missed IDs, and the rest was just the guys up front getting beat. And that wasn't the case in the first half. It was just they didn't show us anything differently. It's just I thought they wanted it a lot more than we did.
The RPOs seem to be really effective for you in the first half. What happened in the second half there, from what you could see?
I think a lot has to do with the lack of focus. I thought we dropped a few of those RPOs. Will got caught with one of them and ended up getting a legal man downfield. They just played a little tighter coverage, and I feel like they wanted it more. There was a third down that, we were looking at of what we could do better on that, and at the end of the day, it was just we need to play with a physical edge because they played us man the entire game. The second half they just got after us a little bit.
What do you tell a veteran group of receivers about drops? I mean, these guys have made a ton of plays in their careers.
They are a mature team. Like you've heard that saying a lot, but they understand. There's a lot of things that they wish they had back. I know Gary wanted a few back as well, but Gary also made some freaky catches in there. So there's a fine line of how to address it or not. These kids are mature enough to understand that they didn't make those plays and they wish they could have it back, but you just can't dwell on it. You got to move on. If it consistently becomes a problem, then we got to find ways to address it throughout practice.
Several running plays where you pulled the backside guard and tackle for leading, and Tech started crashing the end from that side, tracking them down from the back. When they start doing that, do you have to make an adjustment to try to block that, or do you run something different to try to take advantage of that defender coming down?
A little of both. It turned into a guessing game with them. I thought Will was managing it very well. That's where a lot of those RPOs were coming from, were those slants to David Sills and T.J. Simmons. I know T.J. dropped one of them, but there was a pretty good line of how Will was managing it. And then they started at the end of the game, they just started blitzing everybody on it, which we ended up changing our thought process and getting away from that. But it's when you pull the guard and the tackle, the backside edge is going to condense down tremendously. It is, which it gets into some gray area, but just based off of where we were at up front, that from a schematic standpoint, it's a pretty efficient play for us.
How do you address, or how do you explain maybe, Gary, reliable receiver, having like three drops or 4 drops or whatever it was, while also making some really great catches in the same game?
I think it's lack of focus. He looked at me right after he had the series where he dropped 2 in a row. The first one he was wide open, and he knew he was wide open, and he was trying to get upfield immediately, where he just took his head off. He took his eyes off the ball and just was expecting to catch that and get upfield and score a touchdown. But it's just the lack of focus on that, where you've got to pay attention to the detail and make sure that you're focused in on catching the ball first and then getting upfield, which if you watch the first touchdown that he had, like a possible pass interference, he got bounced off of it and caught that one, which was pretty amazing. And then you have the one at the end of the first half on a back shoulder throw, and he just sticks that one out of the air, which was a phenomenal catch too. It's just he got caught in a situation where there was a little lack of focus. He may have been rattled after he dropped the first one, but I think he has a pretty short-term memory, and he moved on. He made some good plays for us later.
Jake, does anything stand out about this Kansas defense from what you've seen on film?
Yeah, they're very multiple now. They're a lot different than what they've been in the past. They were a 4-down team all the time, and now they are a 3-down team, and they'll sprinkle in 4-down, which is pretty interesting to see. They're going to play coverage, and they're going to rally. I think they've got some experienced guys that are mature as well. I think that their 2 safeties, number 11 and 1, are very active players. Their linebackers have played for a long time. Make a lot of tackles. So I think what they try to do is to keep you on your toes and try to catch you off guard. They're a 3-down team with overhangs, so they're gonna blitz them and drop them, and and they're gonna play man, they're gonna play drop 8. They're just gonna try to keep you guessing, and I think the one thing that they do focus on is trying to keep everything in front of them, which I think is allowing them to have a little more success this year.
Coach Holgerson said a big reason why Marcus Sims has really improved is his maturity. Just how have you seen that kid mature this year compared to last year?
Yeah, there's a lot, and I think the main thing is his conditioning. He's being able to play a lot of plays. So the more conditioned he is, the more opportunities he is. Like, it was actually funny on his touchdown that he had right before the play. He caught I forgot what he caught, like a slant, and I'm talking to him the whole time. I'm looking at him. I'm like, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" Because I'm wanting to take a shot to him. And he just looked at me and he said he was fine, and then he went and ran fast. Last year, after that, he wouldn't be able to give the effort that he would like to on that because he'd be gassed. And I just thought it was funny where he's came from there and now is, he was ready to go back-to-back plays and make plays consistently for us, which that was probably the biggest difference.
Before the game, he was not feeling well in the end zone.
That's Marcus every day now.
Okay.
Yeah, that means he's ready to play.
So the butterflies, not a virus, right?
I don't think they're about butterflies. I don't know what it is. We just don't mess with him on that. He's ready to play when I see that. So Will and I were actually laughing at that one because we saw it and we were like, all right, Marcus is ready to roll.
What are the challenges going against a multiple defense like that?
Worry about us. We got to be the lack of focus. Like, we have to pay attention to detail and make sure that we are executing our assignments correctly. And more importantly, we have to play with an edge. We got to play with effort, and we have to play with enthusiasm. That was another thing too. I thought our sidelines was very, just out of the game. There wasn't very much energy on the sidelines, and that's going to be fixed as well.
Dana wasn't interested in talking about this, but he's got 57 wins. He's 1 win shy of tying Art Lewis here for the third most. He's moving up the list. What makes him a good coach in your mind? Why does he win?
I think he adapts to the personnel that he has and understands where we're at. I think that's very hard for coaches that that will kind of scrap their schemes on what they're doing based off of the personnel that they have. And I think 2 years ago in 2016, the success, they're 2 different style teams, and you got to commend him for just understanding where our strengths and weaknesses are and making sure we're put in the best position for that. And on the other side of it is player development and constantly just making sure that we are getting better every single day. And I think in terms of our younger kids' development right now, it's the best I've ever been around, and how much we focus on those kids. Like on Thursdays, we're doing 50 play scrimmages with these kids every Thursday, and we're grading it and we're coaching it. And I think that's the thing about Dana is we're always just trying to improve a little bit every single day.
I've heard coaches say this, that you have to earn your wins here. I mean, there are places where you can go where it's set up, but here you have to go places to find kids. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's hard to win in general, and when you're winning consistently, you must be doing things right and must be recruiting right. West Virginia it's a special place, and it's not like so much of going across the country and getting a certain player. It's about getting the kid that's going to fit into the culture that you have here. There's a lot of things different with that in terms of when you recruit. There's a lot of elements involved in terms of, it's a different style ball up here in, Morgantown than it is in Lubbock, Texas, and you got to have kids that are going to be able to play in snowstorms and rainy games, to also being able to just handle elements. So that's kind of the thing that we try to focus on is, does this kid fit into our culture? And that's why, like, when you ask, like, why didn't you take that kid or what, it's just, it wasn't the right fit for us at the time.
Last thing on that, when you were here on the ground level, did it take you guys a while to realize that, or to learn the lay of the land, or did you know immediately we're going to have to do things a little differently?
It was kind of a unique time because we were entering the Big 12, which now that changes a little bit. And we, I think, you know, the thing was to try to get into Texas a little bit, based off of being playing there majority of the time. But it's just so over recruited that we felt that you probably have more success just being locally around here and finding guys that will, you know, fit into what we're trying to do up here in this region.
Okay, thanks, Coach.